welcome back. It is now Monday the 16th and it is shaping up to be a beautiful, if a bit breezy, morning here. Behind me you can see we got a pivot going, getting this barley watered. The barley itself looks pretty good other than a little bit of residual frost damage and some yellow tips, but I've been playing around with the moisture probe in this field here today, and I can get it down about 24 inches now. But the interesting thing is the first 6 inches is relatively soft, and then after that you hit a real hard layer for about 3-4 inches, get down to about that 1 foot layer, and then boom, the rest of it goes in pretty nicely up to that 24-inch-ish mark. So there is some decent subsoil moisture, but it also seems to be a pretty consistent band of really dry hard clay at about that 6 to 7 inch layer. Well, with the continued dry conditions, it's remarkable how few weeds are appearing now in crop. Here we do have a Canada thistle that's coming up from deep underground, so moisture access isn't really a problem for him. In this field, this wheat is mostly at the 1 leaf stage, and you can see the remnants of some of that frost damage from last week where that's all white and burned off there. A few other leaf tips here. Traditionally, this area of the field is quite a dense kochia patch, and you'll notice that there's pretty much an absence of kochia. There was some here earlier, but we took care of them with pre-burn at seeding time, and since then we've had no moisture and therefore very limited emergence. There's only 1 or 2 kind of here and there, so it'll be interesting to see if that holds true. We're still a few weeks away from herbicide timing in here, and yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. Well, here in some of these irrigated fields, the weed situation is quite different. You can see we got some nice big Canada thistles. There's quite a few in this field, but also you can see here we got an absolute pile of tiny little germinating kochia cotyledons. There's also quite a bit of lamb's quarters and some mallow starting to come up in this field, but you can see that with that available moisture, those seedlings are coming. Oh, this field of winter wheat we just did in-crop herbicide on a few days ago. This got hit with barricade and perimeter. You can see these big stink weeds are starting to curl up, color's starting to change. The small guys are showing it pretty good too. So we should have pretty good weed control in here on most of these species, but it's too early really to tell for sure yet. You can see this shepherd's purse is all sorts of screwed up. This guy here is pretty much already burned off, so looking good so far. Well, back to that dryland wheat field that had the severe kochia patch, and this ground was treated with authority several weeks ago, and even though we've had no moisture, you can actually see the authority is working a little bit. Some of these guys are showing damage. I'm not sure whether it'll be fatal or not, but they are showing some effects. So I hope we get a rain shower here pretty soon. Hopefully we'll get the rest of this stuff activated. Maybe we'll be able to tell for sure. Here's some struggling dryland canola. You can see right here is a dry canola seed that was sitting at about a ½ inch. So that one probably ended up a little shallow. We were kind of targeting 3/4 to 1 inch in this field. And you can see you got to come down here to, pretty much almost 2 inches depth in order to find moisture down there now. So that warm wind the last few days has really been stripping the moisture away. Although you can see here and there, some of the canola did manage to find enough moisture and is just starting to emerge, but so far we're nowhere near enough to have a healthy stand yet. Well, here in some of this dryland fall rye, you can really start to see the moisture stress. So some of these plants are starting to get a little off color, looking a little bit limp, and it's no big surprise now. We're running out of moisture in that soil profile as these plants fight with each other to get what moisture they can. You can see we're pretty damn dry. Pretty much like no usable moisture left in that root zone. So can only go one of 2 ways from here. We get rain or we don't. So we'll see what happens. Well, there's a few guys have decided, well, screw it, let's seed this canola into dry dirt anyways. So that is what is going on today. There's at least 3 or 4 guys I've talked to today that have decided to go ahead and seed their dryland canola. There is moisture in the forecast for Thursday, so hopefully that pans out. It's been kind of a running theme the last few weeks that they forecast moisture usually for Thursday, Friday, and then as we get to Wednesday, the moisture kind of disappears. But hopefully this week it pans out. Sooner or later, it has to rain eventually, right? By Lethbridge here, you can see that we have some stressed out barley. This stuff is emerging. Temperatures the last few days haven't been too terribly bad, but you can still see what looks like temperature banding on this. However, barley is a bit of a drama queen, and the yellowing doesn't always just mean temperature stress. It can mean other things as well. You can see here, this was worked land, and it was worked quite well. And so a lot of this seed went in very deep, up to 4 inches deep in some places. So that is meaning these plants are very weak by the time they get to the surface. Some of them probably won't make it to the surface without some degree of mortality, but they should recover and be fine, the ones that are emerging. It just takes them a little bit longer, but can blame this one on Cody for sure. Volunteer canola really starting to show up on some of the irrigation, and you can see this patch here by Lethbridge actually does have some flea beetle damage on it. So this is the first flea beetle feeding I've seen evidence for this year so far. Doesn't look too terribly severe at this point yet, but it's still early in the season, so we'll see how it goes once the actual non-volunteer canola really starts emerging. This fall rye by Colhurst is continuing its plans on world domination. It is just growing like mad. It is now almost up to my knees compared to last week. You can see here we do have nodes elongating in the stem. So we got, here's the final node here, and right above it here is the head. Sorry, a little bit of a breeze here. So the head is moving up towards boot position. It's not quite there yet. It is a little ways farther to go, but it won't be too long before we start to see boot stage and flag leaf emergence. But doing great. Been getting a lot of messages asking about my stylish finger bandage, and what this is a splint, because I actually ripped all the tendons off that last knuckle on this finger about 9 weeks ago now. So I'm actually in the recovery stage now where I can actually take the splint off for about an hour a day and try to flex it. I have only about that much flexibility down right now, but at least I can straighten it, which I couldn't do before. So making progress slowly, but you'll probably still see the finger brace for a couple weeks. Here we have some buckwheat just emerging. This little guy doesn't look like a whole lot yet, but his first true leaf is there. It just hasn't really unfolded yet, so mostly you can just see the cotyledons. You can really see the difference between the dryland and the irrigation now. This fall rye here, the dryland you can see is just stressed right out, rolled up leaves, not doing too terribly well. Irrigation much thicker and fuller, although here under the end gun it's been a few days since the pivot went around, and you can see some stress similarly in here as well, but much thicker and much greener than that dry land. Thursday now, and I'm down here by McGrath in some very stressed out winter wheat that is really showing the drought stress in here. Hopefully today we're going to get some rain. According to the forecast it was already supposed to be raining, but they just keep moving it off. But we are seeing more clouds than I have seen for a long time. Lentils by McGrath are looking a little bit better this week. You can now make out nice rows, and the frost damage they've pretty much grown out of. They're still looking a little bit stressed, and there is definitely some big gaps in the rows in some areas that haven't really emerged because of lack of moisture. But hopefully that'll change today. Peas down here are looking pretty good. Most of them are now at second node, some approaching third node, although some are still just emerging. No sign of pea leaf weevil either here, and that moisture is slowly starting to get closer. There is a few drops coming down now, which is awesome. Best we've seen in weeks. Well, just a few drops so far. It's been threatening for about 2 hours now at this point, but you can see to the north it looks like something's coming in, but man, this wind, if it doesn't stop, it's not going to amount to anything. All right, well, Friday morning now. It has rained on and off all night. I do have some moisture in the meter, but that line should be 1/4 of an inch, so we're probably down at about 1/10, so really not a lot. Well, it seems like I picked a pretty good day to have booked maintenance for my truck 2 weeks ago. I'm on my way into Ford because I got a bunch of tire sensors that are doing random things and all sorts of funny stuff. So that's what I'll be doing today, and hopefully not slogging through too many muddy fields. And I hope to hell that the fields are indeed getting muddy.